Welcome back to beautiful South Beach. Dan Leach here with you at Future Proof Miami, and I'm joined by Eben Burr, the president of Toews Asset Management. Great to see you.
Thanks very much for having me.
Hey, we're in a pretty cool place to be at for a conference. I've never really been to one like this before, and I can't imagine that you're not enjoying yourself.
I'm loving it. Being on the beach. We do have a wall to be honest with the beach there, which I'd like to be honest with.
I almost jumped over that wall, and it's very tempting to just be in this great, environment right now. Is one leading to a lot of good finds for a lot of different reasons and great discussions. That's why I'm really looking forward to talking with you. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk about Toews Asset Management and what you guys are up to right now.
Yeah, so for 30 years, we've been managing risk. That is our primary function in our portfolio. Hedged equity, tactical fixed income. We want to be there for those unexpected down markets that can damage someone's portfolio who's close to retirement or in retirement. Now, obviously, we also want to capture as much of the upside as possible, but really, we won't do anything that sacrifices the integrity of the manager.
I know that obviously your primary goal is managing that risk, and obviously you want to talk about that upside capture. In today's kind of volatile period where, here in tariffs on, tariffs off, crypto's a big deal. How are you guys, cutting through all the noise with those obviously very impressive and important goals?
Regardless of what the news cycle is, the risk is the same. The portfolio goes down.
That's a great point.
Right. So we focus on the tangible elements of managing the risk, regardless of what the current challenge is, because it's really, when you come down to it, it's a limited number of things. It's interest rates, it's inflation, it is geopolitical. And so if you boil it down to those relatively generic challenges out there, well, then you're executing across equities and fixed income to make sure they don't go down too much and create crisis in the life of users.
Which no one wants, of course, obviously.
They don't want that.
Hedged equity, very important for you guys. Kind of expound upon that, if you will.
Yeah, so with hedged equity, we want just straight exposure to the S&P, and then we're doing a 2-year put on top of that we manage dynamically. So if nothing at all happens in the market, we'll roll that after a year. But obviously things do happen in the market. So the last couple of years, we've had significant rises in the market. We'll roll that up, essentially raising it. And then we're also selling shorter dated calls and put spreads to generate to pay for that put. And then if markets really decay, you get some juice there too.
Not much you guys aren't doing. I'm just very impressed. Let's talk about something that I think is very cool, and you're involved with the Behavioral Investing Institute. Explain to people what that's all about.
Yeah, so in the investment world, return chasing is unavoidable and detrimental, right? It is
well said, my friend.
It will always happen, and it will always harm you. So what we started doing in 2011 is teaching behavioral finance to investment advisors, because back then it was sort of a definitional thing. People were like, what's that? And then people were really interested in the subject matter, but they didn't do anything to change their behavior. They were still chasing returns. And so then we thought, okay, well, we need to create tools for them. That'll help them. And they're like, oh, these tools are amazing. I'm so glad to have these. And then they didn't answer. So then we were like, okay, we need to hold them accountable. So we created a coaching program where we stood over them and held them accountable for it. And then they started to make changes. But really, they needed like the teacher over them with the ruler all the time in order to stick to those changes, because they have 2 nervous Nellies in their in their practice, and they would sort of think that meant that everyone was that nervous and make changes just based on the loudness. And so throughout this time period, we've been learning and refining about how to work with advisors to balance the behavioral needs and the financial needs of the clients, and really the advisors as well. And Phil Toews has a book coming out next week, the 25th of March, about that subject, and it is a deeply researched and quantitative study of that balance, behavioral and financial, and how you can execute it in a practice and why it's so essential.
2 things. Get that book, and also, I know a lot of people that use that behavioral investing, so that's awesome stuff you're doing. Before I let you go, I just want to look at the future. I wish we all had a crystal ball. We don't be super rich if we did. But when you look at 2, 3, 5 years down the road right now, obviously how you see things going, but also how you want Toews Asset Management to capture all that as well.
When one has a run like we've had in the market for the last, call it 15 years, you establish an average that is higher than normalized. And if we are to assume that we are going to return to the mean, what does that mean? We're going to earn less in years, right?
Pretty simple.
Pretty simple. And does that mean that we're going to go from, 15% a year to an even 7? Probably not. There's probably going to be some pain in there,
right,
and some pleasure that will even out to a lower return than we've experienced recently. So we've all been very fortunate. We need to protect the gains good faith. No one wants to give them up. Everybody benchmarks to the last highest number that they had in their portfolio. So let's try and keep it as close to that as possible.
Phenomenal stuff. Eben Burr, the president of Toews Asset Management. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.